Yeah, I mean, I think youth ministry has a lot of great challenges facing it. So you think about what will youth ministry be in the next 10 years, or what are some issues we have to face as we move forward. I mean, one of them for me that I've become more interested in thinking about is really how youth ministry actually becomes family friendly, or how we actually take consideration of the family. I mean, I think for the last 10, 15, 20 years, we've added family on to what youth ministry is about. So like in my position at the seminary I teach at, it's called Youth and Family Ministry. But for the most part, we don't really do much with the family. And, we're at this big National Youth Workers Convention, and yeah, there's some seminars on family, and there's some books about it maybe here and there. But really getting into how complicated American families are, and they're only getting more and more complicated. And there's just a lot of issues that if youth ministry really does and really is committed to being about families, or understanding young people as bound within families, then we're going to have to take some pretty radical steps, I think. And I'm not sure what those look like, but you can't just say you're about families or want to be about families and not confront some of the direct realities of that. Whether it's issues of divorce, whether it's just issues of multiple definitions of family, I think that becomes a major challenge for youth ministry. Another challenge, I think, for youth ministry as we move forward into the future is how to construct a theological perspective. And that sounds very kind of abstract, but I mean that in a concrete way. How do we construct a theological perspective that allows us to kind of walk this thin line, at least within our cultural context, this thin line between kind of rigidity, religious rigidity, or you can even call it fundamentalism, and on the other side of the, if that's one ugly ditch, then the other ugly ditch is this kind of openness that has no particularity to it. Or so, like, oh, Jesus just wants me to be friends with everybody and be nice to everyone. So how does youth ministry become an asset to the church in helping young people claim their faith in a way that is actually open to the world but can make a confession of Jesus Christ? Like, how do we do that? And how does our confessionalism not move us into kind of rigid categories, but our openness to the world not lead us into this kind of, well, Jesus is just one with everybody else? I mean, how do we actually do that? And I actually think business as usual doesn't work very well either. I mean, I think we need a much richer theological perspective to do that. And one of the ways forward, I think, in that, and one of the things that I'm kind of wanting to push for, is that youth workers, I think, need to spend more time thinking about the where question. And we've usually thought about the where question like, where are young people, and how do we get them into our church? But I think before we can even ask that question, really we have to ask this question: where is God? In the sense of, where does God actually reveal God's self? Now, in some ways, that sounds like this really simplistic Sunday school kind of thing. Like, where's God is, well, where people love each other, or where people are reading the Bible, or where people are worshiping. But I think that we have to move into really constructing rich and nuanced understandings of where God actually encounters us. So it becomes a question of revelation to me. And I think in youth ministry, in the context of youth ministry, we haven't really done ministry from a commitment of how we understand God unveiling God's self, or God revealing God's self. And so I'd like to see youth ministry move forward with helping youth workers articulate their view or their understanding, whether it's from reading scripture, or it's from their tradition, or it's from other theological work, of being able to articulate where God reveals God's self, where God is actually found, and then placing our practices and strategies in some kind of correlation with where God actually is found. And so usually we, of course, have certain perspectives of how we encounter God, or where God is present. But usually when it comes to what you do on Wednesday night, or what you do for confirmation, those things don't always really come together. You do all these games, or you do confirmation this way, or but it doesn't really connect with where you actually understand God's presence actually in the world. So I think trying to find a way to articulate that becomes, I think, really important in the future.